Happy Red Kingdom Media Friday. We talk the stadium duel, Worthy at wide receiver 1, and Trey Smith contract talk. All that next on Gridiron Gambit.
Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for tuning in to this Red Kingdom Media production, bringing you raw, authentic Chiefs coverage. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on your team. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
Let's work. Hey.
What is going on, everybody? It is currently Friday morning, just catching that morning slot here. It is another edition of Gridiron Gambit, and the recurring Friday team of Clinton and Jordan are here to bring you some of the latest news out of the Chiefs organization and things around Chiefs Kingdom as a whole. But first and foremost, Jordan, how are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing all right. I'm alive. Happy Red Friday, everyone. Good morning to you as well. And good morning, everybody that is watching live from YouTube to Substack, everywhere. How y'all doing?
Yes, sir. We try to be everywhere. Give you a little content based on wherever you're at. But we stay being busy out here, even when the NFL is not currently doing any work and sports are kind of at a lull. The Kansas City Royals getting swept to the Rays, and then have the daunting Los Angeles Dodgers coming in. Who's to say how sports will look for a little bit? But you've already talked about training camp. We'll have some training camp talk a little later. But let's go ahead and officially get into our first topic, which is crossing the red line. So with Kansas lawmakers requesting more time to explore stadium financing options, do you think a move to Kansas ultimately makes sense for the Chiefs long term?
In the long run, it is just kind of sad that we seeing more deals come in towards the Chiefs' way to move them to Kansas, which I'm kind of not looking forward to. But at this point, I'm really not excited about it. But with Hunt, he loves the money. The man loves the money. I'm not mad at him.
Right.
But we don't want to see the boys cross that line. I'm not ready for it at all. I know none of us are, because we've been in Missouri for over half a century. Like, come on, y'all. Like, we love our boys on the Missouri side, but with Hunt, he loves the money. He rather keeps most of his money in his pocket, and of course, eventually get the boys on the Kansas side. But you know me, I'm still gonna be a fan no matter what. But as it looks right now, I can see them heading towards the Kansas side at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had said anything a week ago, it would seem like, Missouri has all the advantages, because we heard some reports come out of that, and the fact that the Kansas deadlines, were approaching. So this is, a follow-up to, I think, a segment that I don't think we talked about it. I think the other group did. But, they, just like us, are, very pro-Missouri on this topic for history's sake. But, I think you and I did have a conversation about, if ultimately, if the Royals and Chiefs had to separate, and are you okay with that? And, I think that's ultimately where everything leads up to. And we want to talk about, history and legacy and all that type of stuff. But you already said it, money talks. So whoever can give the best financial decision for, sports team owners, that's who's going to win the most. Hopefully there's some best interests of the fans and the team and stuff like that. But it's going to be who can deliver the best deal. I think when Kansas initially announced their bonds and the swaying of the sports teams after the Jackson County vote was rejected. It seemed like, oh, this is a power play, and whether or not it's going to be more of a tease to get Missouri to open their wallets, or if it was a legitimate ploy by Kansas to say we're intent on getting them to the other side. So Missouri had the counterpoint, and then it seemed like, oh, well, that's a no-brainer. They're already here. They can make a move that probably won't cost them as much if they were going to set up their own team, new site or something like that. So it seemed like the momentum went back on Missouri, but with Kansas at least trying to put up a fighting chance and say we'll extend the deadline on these bonds in order to let the sports teams make the decision. I think the Chiefs could definitely profit off their games and all that stuff in the state of Kansas. But for history's sake, we'd like them to stay near Arrowhead, where they've already kind of built their legacy on. And then you could go back to the conversation we had about this team separating, and if one team is going to be in Missouri, the other team feels like they're jumping ship to Kansas. So it's like, pick your poison. Which team do you like the most? Who do you want to stay? I think you and I are both on the Kansas City, Missouri at our vote, but unfortunately you cannot claim the Chiefs as a regional team anymore. It's
right.
not right on the dot of state line between Kansas and Missouri. The city that's crossing on both lines there. But go around throughout the Midwest, the teams have, those states have claimed Chiefs as their team, and now you got little kids all over the world that don't even really know which state the Chiefs are in right now, currently. But they still enjoy them and watching them, and are contributing to the NFL and the Chiefs' financial success.
I know. Just to back off you for a little bit, I know for Cincinnati just came up with a big deal just to stay in Cincinnati for, I think it was an 11-year deal or something like that, for to keep their stadium. And I know with the state taxes and stuff like that, I think it was like a 75% and all that crap. But speaking enough about Cincinnati, but with us moving, it'll be weird, but I feel like it's gonna be the 5 to 10 year type of span to whenever we do plan on moving to Kansas, because there's gonna be a lot of building to build that stadium if they do move to Kansas. And most likely with the open space and how big the stadium is gonna be, I feel like most likely it's gonna be out towards the Legends area, which most likely I feel like it's gonna be at. But because just like it'll be kind of weird trying to move. For example, we talked about it earlier before in a previous episode. Try to move the Chiefs to the downtown area. That'll be weird. That'll be crazy. Too much. A cluster. You know what? I ain't gonna watch my language on here, y'all. But it'll just be a huge cluster, and trying to break down stuff and tear down things and demolish stuff. But eventually, within a 10-year span, I could see us eventually moving to Kansas. Sadly, will be all this history that we got here in Missouri, from the first Super Bowl to our recent Super Bowl. It's just so much history in there. It kind of sucks we got to move out to Kansas, but you know me, I'm gonna still be a fan, ride or die.
I get that, and I'm the same way. Ultimately, this is a meaningless argument. We have personal preferences in the matter, and that's like convenience sake or a historical perspective. But ultimately, the business is going to determine it, and whatever is the biggest demand that allows the Chiefs and NFL to profit the most. You know, it is what it is.
Right.
It definitely kind of points that way, but at this point, it started out as Jackson County wasn't that thrilled about having the Chiefs, or at least that was like the media perspective. To now, it seems like both states are having a bidding war for both sports teams. They're hoping to at least acquire one of them. And ultimately, if the Chiefs were going to move Arrowhead, you would have to have some kind of before and after analysis, and it's like, oh, have the Chiefs won Super Bowls since they've moved to Kansas? Oh, well then, this era is over. Oh, there's a dome in Kansas, but there wasn't one in Missouri. Well, that played a factor. If they moved over to Kansas, would they consider going to somewhere else for training camps or something instead of crossing the border? They stay in Kansas for that. Who knows? They can make a bunch of different decisions on that. And I know we don't like to talk about that type of stuff because then the domino effect happens, and then comes reality. We like Missouri to ultimately be the victor in retaining the Chiefs, and if the Royals are a parting gift, then that was the the result of doing business, I guess.
Right.
But with Kansas deciding to extend their deadline, which I think was a no-brainer decision on them. I don't think it's costing them anything to say we have money sitting up front, even if they haven't even raised the funding for that. That'll come when the deal is actually struck. This is just acknowledging, hey, we still have money to play with. Don't be swayed by this. So if Missouri thinks they're gonna make a power move on us, then we have to retaliate in that way. But the state line battle will continue. We're gonna kind of be the guinea pigs to whatever results from that, and it's going to be a several year down the line process. But it feels like the decisions of these can happen at any moment. These under the table backroom deals, and then the media gets a hold of it, and fans just learn about it right then and there. I really hope that that's not the situation we're in, and we're able to, be able to get enough of a warning about it and not have, the scenarios of what it's like when an NFL team leaves a certain city. It always feels like it's out from under them. They played 1 year there. The next year, they're just completely gone. The fans had, no real, kind of closure over the situation, and it always feels like brutal breakups. And I don't think Kansas City, Missouri would be that bitter. It was a Overland Park, Kansas move or something like that. But the St. Louis Rams fans aren't necessarily cheering on the LA Rams, and some, not all of them, have converted to Chiefs Kingdom either. So it does need to be stated that if you are slighted that way, there are some people that will ultimately just walk away entirely. And, that would not be good for finances, but, like the rating, who cares about ratings in Kansas City, Missouri, if ratings in Lincoln, Nebraska are up by 500,000 people? Those numbers are work themselves out.
Right.
Shout out Dale. Thanks.
What up, Dale?
In the chat. But yeah, Kansas is trying to make their move. Missouri's already counter moved before that. Kansas is just puffing their chests up, saying we still got a fighting chance. Missouri will give their rebuttal in a week or two, and it might be a full off-season discussion about these new stadium spots for the Chiefs or what state they play in, and then nope, we just sit on this and it becomes a next off-season topic. So
Right. It's really gonna be a back and forth type of thing. Literally. Literally now Kansas got their little talk and see how things go. Missouri go counter that. I think we can put more money into it. Kansas gonna be on top again. It's just literally gonna be back and forth, definitely throughout the season and just years to come through. So it's literally gonna be back and forth.
Yep. Anything else you want to discuss about these stadiums?
Not really. Usually I'll have to say something, but hey, at this point, it's just a back and forth thing. We see how it goes.
Right?
We just hear by ear.
It's like we're done talking about ifs and maybes. When there's a news official and everything is coming out, we'll have like our authentic reactions to that. But it's like we're just speculating on bad news. It's like I can only do that for a couple minutes at a time. I can't allow myself that type of negativity for too long. So before we move on to some good Chiefs topics, before we move on,
make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Kingdom Media. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like or comment so we can reply and interact with you and make you a part of the show. If you listen to us on Spotify, please rate us 5 stars so we can increase our reach in the playlist. Follow us and all our contributors on all the social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X. If you'd like to come on and talk Chiefs, message us so we can potentially set that up. Do you enjoy written content? Subscribe to our Substack. We have both a free and a $5 a month subscription and post on there frequently. And if you have any interest in being a contributor on the writing staff, feel free to reach out and we'll be in touch. It would help support the brand if you would purchase our merch, like the shirt that I'm wearing currently. Set up an order for one of these or 2 or 3, and this will allow us to expand our inventory options. Thanks for being a part of this channel, and if there's any partner that's listening to this interested in sponsoring the show or any other content that we produce, please reach out. Now, back to the show.
Let's go ahead and jump into topic number 2, which is X marks the spot. Which, in this day and age, we got to be talking about Xavier Worthy. Us older folks, we remember the Dante Hall throwing up the X Factor. But in this particular topic, it's going to be Xavier Worthy. And after glimpses last season, can he truly emerge as wide receiver 1 and give Mahomes his next Tyreek-like weapon?
For sure, I could definitely see it. You already know the speed is there. He's there definitely. This past season when Rice went down, he really had to show up, that's what he really did. He still got a lot of learning to do. They still consider this his rookie season-ish, but he's still a veteran in a way. He's good with the offense and everything. Now that we got Rice back, he definitely still go contribute in that wide receiver room. But since Rice is back, even though he has this injury, he's coming back from injury, I feel like he still will contribute more to that wide receiver core along with Juju and everyone else. But I feel like Xavier Worthy is going to do his thing like always. And I can say I'm looking forward to it. And he's for sure going to be our wide receiver too. But at some points, he's going to have to be that wide receiver 1, have those big moments.
I agree. Can he truly emerge as a 1? I think it depends on how he's used. And I think, Tyreek Hill, even when he was the number 1 wide receiver on the depth chart, it always felt like it was Travis Kelce as the first option, which is usually what you associate the first receiver on a route on a given play to be. So if you just tell me if it's the first target, I think absolutely Xavier Worthy could be the first target just because that freakish speed, like Tyreek Hill. If teams don't play the deep zones, like, when Mahomes first got on the field and you saw Watkins and Hill be able to take just slants the entire length of the field, like we could have those levels again. And Rashee Rice is phenomenal at that, and his size is big. And Dale was hyping up Dwayne Bowe last Tuesday, and he and Rashee Rice are 1-to-1 like that, where you have the bigger bodies. But Xavier Worthy, he could be very sneaky, where if you did not press Tyreek Hill immediately and have a deep safety already waiting for wherever that zone was, you could just send him on a streak, and then Mahomes will just float the air underneath the ball, and it'll go into the nice hands. We already saw it in the Super Bowl, as depressing as that game was overall. Xavier Worthy flashed in that game, and Mahomes was pissed off at times and said, Xavier Worthy is fast and he's down there somewhere. So at least, if anything, if that Super Bowl woke up the desire that the deep ball needs to be fixed and, brought back in a more structured style, more of an emphasis on it, and have that be the number 1 or 2 options instead of always take the check down. That was Mahomes' strength, was checking it deep. And then, maybe to no fault of his own, more of just Andy Reid and the play style, he's had to kind of neuter his game and always kind of take away the deep ball and check it short or run out of bounds or something like that to kind of just eliminate those costly turnovers and mistakes. I don't know if Mahomes is ultimately scared of interceptions because of the coach's reaction or his stats. It's probably more the former than the latter. But there's this reputation going around now that like Mahomes is kind of playing that Tom Brady role, and we're kind of losing what made Mahomes look amazing early. Like at this point, the only phenomenal things about him is that he wins. And, ultimately that's the number 1 stat for quarterbacks. And for Tom Brady, that was always the case.
Right.
But when they were playing, it was always Peyton Manning getting most of the spotlights. And it was because he had more of the numbers, production, and that type of, stuff like that. So, we'd love to see Mahomes be back in the spotlight offensively, not just for winning their games, but like winning the games they used to be able to win a long time ago, and kind of bring back that, like, yeah, we do like to show off. It is showtime. It is Mahomes. We are the Kansas City Chiefs. We do have Taylor Swift chilling in the sweet box over there. So, we do need to put on shows. Like, we don't want to win by only blocking a field goal against the Broncos. We don't want to have close games against the Chargers anymore. It's time to establish dominance. And for Andy Reid, it's always the first spot is the against the AFC West. And week 1, we'll get that shot right away. And at this point, it's not going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be in Brazil. And it's going to be a Friday night. And that means the Chiefs are in the spotlight again, the only show on TV. And what better way to kind of make a statement than having another week 1 game against the Chargers, similar to 2019 when Mahomes comes on the field. And you have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and maybe even a healthy and rookie Jalen Royals, and having all that speed on the field at the same time, and then having Travis Kelce just wait there. We could be in for some fireworks, and I know that we've all been hoping for it. Xavier Worthy said that it's possible that that's on the horizon, but it's going to take discipline and maybe even reverse discipline, because like we've trained ourselves so much to take the easy, safe play, and this time have more confidence that we'll be able to overcome our mistakes and not have to win by just a 1-score game for the entire length of the season, and try to win games by more than 1 score. I understand that points don't really matter, and if you could win a game 3-0 and guarantee that, so be it. But you also don't feel like both sides of the ball establish their dominance. At this point, the Chiefs would love when their defense establishes their dominance, and then the offense can kind of just sit around and wait for the game to be over and kind of get to the playoff time. But Spagnuolo and his defense is ready to go just about every week. And, for a while, he's always had the struggles early on in the season. And then by the end of the season, they looked phenomenal. The last couple of years, they've just looked amazing out of the gate and then got even better as the season went on. And then, they play a Josh Allen and you give up the most points you have all season. That comes with the territory. So none of us are saying, how dare you give up that many points? Like that was the inevitable, but we still got the job done, and that relied on the offense. But it's like we cannot wait till AFC divisional round type week to let the offense start to, shoot their shots a little bit. We need to see that Mahomes getting up there in MVP again, and not just because his team is undefeated. It's because we're up there in the 40 touchdowns and the 4,000 passing yards. We're just kind of seeing a decrease in his stats, and just as fans, we'd like to see more because we've been accustomed to more. And I don't want it to make it sound greedy, but it's like we know that they're capable of more. So why are they just kind of sitting on their hands waiting for the right time? Because at any given moment, once you do that, you've kind of opened a can of worms, like how the Super Bowl played out.
So, question for you and also the people out there as well. Would you rather see the 4,500, 5,000 passing yards with almost 50 touchdowns, or would you rather see us win by 14 or more points?
I mean, if you're guaranteeing victory of 14s for sure. But I think if you just say, hey, Mahomes had a 50 touchdown, 5,000 yard year, I think you just automatically assume the success as well. Like, if Mahomes threw for 6 touchdowns and they must have won, right? Especially with how our defense looks now. And like Spagnuolo, it doesn't matter if he's got to, be on defense 18 times. He'll try to shut him down each and every time. Mahomes would be like, just go kill another 4 minutes. This time we'll actually sit on the ball, we promise. And then the drive after that, just kidding, here we go. And this is when we chuck it deep. Show no mercy, really. That's all I'm saying. If we want to be the team to be feared, then we kind of need to pull the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady approach and be willing to beat a team by 40 if it deems necessary. If a team is so under our level, we should be outright destroying them, not having, like you've already said before in the previous episode, the Panthers look like they have our number and have a legitimate shot at beating us. We should not even look in the same, district as the Panthers. When you're a playoff level team and a team picking early in the draft, it cannot be that close. And, professional sports is kind of bridging that gap where, you're a young team and you get 2 or 3 draft picks that really turn it around, like especially in the NBA, you can win a championship very quickly. And that, young players on, quote, cheaper contracts is kind of that first window, and then figuring out who to retain and stuff like that. And we'll get into a similar topic like that shortly here with our last one. But if we're just talking about Xavier Worthy and can his speed make him a Tyreek level weapon? For sure. It's just whether or not Andy Reid is willing to utilize him in that capacity to the amount of reps that Tyreek got. I mean, Tyreek was like a leader in catches one year, and they were all very short dump offs. So, if our wide receiver one is Xavier Worthy, and it's like, bro, he had 20 catches last game, and it was barely 50 yards. Well, he kept getting 3.5 yards go out. Like, he kept getting the clutch third down or whatever. And that's proved the wide receiver one ranking. If you're doing it in the clutch spots and, hey, the third down, the game is on the line, you're the first target or second target behind Travis Kelce, like Tyreek was. then I could see that. But I think his role is going to be a lot of kind of older, like pre-Mahomes Tyreek decoy. Hey, he's so fast, you got to watch out for him. Run deep with him. Hey, look, open zone, 8 yards past the line of scrimmage. Travis Kelce, go make a move. Rashee Rice, go make a move. Juju Smith-Schuster, go make a move. That tends to be the West Coast Andy Reid offense that they like to run the most.
Yep.
Versus, Xavier Worthy, you're on a streak, and we're definitely going to throw it to you because we're going to play action and keep at least 2 or 3 extra guys. So there's no way Mahomes get beamed. He's getting a perfect, beautiful pass. It's going to be as far as he can throw it. It's getting to the end zone. You just got to figure out where it is to run underneath it. If a game is so out of reach like the Super Bowl was, that could be a strategy the Chiefs like to spam. But since they've shown us just a little glimpse, a little taste of it, I feel like they should try to go to that well more often because
they definitely will. And I was thinking about that. I was like, even though we didn't play a good Super Bowl, that just scoring those big those 2 passing touchdowns to Xavier Worthy, it definitely showed towards what could happen more in the next season. Because that was a great bomb, but I wish we could have done that earlier. Better results.
Right. If Xavier Worthy could have missed the second half of his college career and just kind of been in a Chiefs training camp until April when they finally drafted him, been 6 months ahead of schedule. Considering Rashee Rice went down and then kind of that lack of production for wide receiver, I think he could have proved himself a lot earlier on that he could take those snaps, and he would have. And since we saw his success, we could have imagined a lot more than what we did have in Rashee Rice's absence. But in pairing with Rashee Rice, I know we don't necessarily think Xavier Worthy is going to get as much production because Rashee Rice already has that established connection with Mahomes and the trust factor with Andy Reid and stuff. But Xavier Worthy definitely flashed his talents enough to say you cannot ignore him and you cannot, keep him off the field. His size is arguably the only thing that people are concerned with. And those same things were said about Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill was in on some running downs. And, was he the best blocker? No. But, his presence on the field still caused the opposing defense to have some anxiety about potential speed being broken out at any given play. So just having that, X factor is a big deal. And we saw it, and we're ready for kind of another layer to be peeled off and let Xavier Worthy kind of prove himself. I think he's done a great job with the opportunities, as limited as they have been. And, his speed is what got him flagged coming into the NFL. And the Chiefs said, oh, we'll take some more of that. And
Thank you,
wasn't
Bills.
until the exactly. And it wasn't until the Super Bowl or the game against the Chargers where we just saw the little taste of he's open on the deep route. So I hope Andy Reid just spent all, the early spring, coming into training camp now, just thinking, man, what are the different ways I'm going to find Xavier Worthy in the end zone and keep Mahomes standing up? And what are the 12 ways that I can kind of guarantee that at any given time? Oh, we need 7 points in about 20 seconds. Okay, got it. Do this one.
Right.
So, that's what I'm hoping for. I think Xavier Worthy did kind of prove himself in the little short bursts that he had. Obviously, his production is not going to be as much if he and Rashee Rice are sharing the productions. But when this offense was good after 2019, we still had 1,000-yard receivers and rushers all over the place.
Yep.
So when the offense was aplenty, the yards and receptions and catches and touchdowns were there to be had. You just had to be a good enough player to achieve them. And I think we're both kind of rooting for that type of offensive production again, because they've had the talent around them. I think last year we thought we were going to have that. And, the little younger version of Xavier Worthy paired with Rashee Rice, but with a more seasoned Xavier Worthy paired with a hopefully healthy now Rashee Rice, as reports are coming out to be. That should be some exciting football to watch here in the next coming months.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm about to call it the Big Four because we got Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and of course Travis Kelce. And you can't forget about Juju. So you got the Big Five because Juju go out there and do his thing too.
That's right. And we talked a lot about the offensive weapons, but we all know that majority of the discourse around the Chiefs offense has always been about the offensive line talk. And that transitioned us into our final topic, which is the Trey Day Deadline. I like that name, Dale. Way to go on like that one. Mm-hmm. So I'm repping the Creed Humphrey jersey right now for those of you who are just listening. And that's because we're going to talk about his tag team partner stated on New Heights earlier this week. Trey Smith is playing under the franchise tag at this point, and the July 15th extension deadline is fast approaching. Do you believe the Chiefs should lock him up on a long-term deal now, or do you want to wait and let the season play out?
Ooh, this is going to be a tough one. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, either or. I can see us both see the Chiefs doing a mix of both, but at this point, I will wait it out to the end of the season and see how it goes. Because I can say this is probably one of the toughest topics I can get into. But for right now, let's see how it goes throughout the season. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Is there anything he can do like during the season that makes your brain tingle and says, okay, forget all my doubts, just go ahead and get the deal done?
Yeah, at this point. Yeah, I can say at this point, might as well, because I think they're looking, if I'm not mistaken, like at a 3-year contract or something like that, 3 or 4 year deal. Mm-hmm. Which I'm not mad at that because I can say he's one of the top offensive linemen in the league for damn sure. I can say that. And just go ahead and take that deal. I wouldn't be mad at it because I know we definitely building up our offensive line and having a secure spot that with no hesitation, we might as well get to it. So,
and I think going into last year or before this conversations, as much as we like Trey Smith, just paying a lot of money for right guard just didn't really make a lot of logical sense. Mm-hmm. But as the months has progressed and we saw the Joe Tooney trade, so that leaves the hole at left guard, which means we can pay the money to Trey Smith that we were paying just on the other side. Mm-hmm. And Creed Humphrey was retained as a highest paid center, but it didn't seem like his deal was necessarily breaking the bank or resetting the market for that type of center deal. And we know that centers at this point are making less money than guards. But, that pairing with Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith has been kind of dominant in plug and play since they were drafted in 2021, I believe. And, the way that, both the Kelce brothers on New Heights gloated about him, and Travis said that the organization loves him and was excited to get him, and Jason mentioning that he had been watching some of his stuff and he was like one of his favorites. That type of praise kind of just sets the bar higher for him. And from what we've seen, it doesn't really seem like Trey Smith is going to be asking for, the insane market breaking deals. So as long as he's within, a certain range, you feel like the deal could get done there. And I think the idea that the Chiefs get a deal done now, they get to save 20 full guaranteed million for their cap space, can give him a deal arguably that pays more per year than that, but just not in actual guaranteed contract numbers, which would help the books, which would allow for other good young rookies to get retained, like the Trent McDuffie conversation that can be had once this Trey Smith conversation kind of finishes one way or the other. So for a personal matter, I would love for the Chiefs to kind of get that deal done and kind of just not have to worry about it over the summer, and can kind of gauge what Trent McDuffie's feeling. But it ultimately depends on how Trey Smith feels and about his worth, because if the Chiefs are not hitting those levels that he's expecting, then he'll just say, you know what, you guys are going to pay me more this 1 year guaranteed than you guys did all 4 years that I was on your team. And so I feel like I've earned that, and I've had on-field success, and the team has prospered since, me and Creed have stepped onto the field for you guys right out of the draft. So, I'll go ahead and ride it out, because if you guys won't pay me, 25, almost $30 million a year for my services as a guard, there's definitely a team picking high in the draft that will probably want to justify that decision and then draft the young quarterback that I'm paired with. But, Trey Smith has said on New Heights that, like, he liked the culture here. He hoped that he could land here. He was drafted here and thought everything kind of fell into place. So, maybe there's some magic there, and the sides are, more friendly and respectful about the deals being done. And, even if the Chiefs don't reach a deal with Trey Smith by July 15th, I don't think that, ultimately closes the negotiation window entirely. It will for a little bit, to let like some other deals and contracts and business decisions and stuff like that work out. But I don't feel like the Trey Smith camp and the Brett Beat camp will be at war if the team doesn't, lock him down at this point. Because they do enjoy each other's company, and there is that mutual respect there. But, from a business perspective, the Chiefs should absolutely be trying to get this deal done, because it's the one looming one going into this season. And if you get this deal done, that allows you to be more proactive about Trent McDuffie is next up on the list, and then you can start making arguments. Is George Karlaftis worth the second contract? Is Rashee Rice ready to be in this conversation, and how much is he wanting? And what ranking wide receiver in the entire NFL is he, and what dollar amount does that worth? Like, the NFL and the Chiefs are going to get more expensive, and streaming rights are allowing more and more revenue and cap space. But you still have to make tough business decisions. I mean,
always.
The Hunts may be billionaires, but or maybe not that type level, but they're definitely not going to spend as high of the money as other teams have kind of thrown around that they would. Not saying that Clark Hunt's cheap, but that tends to be the knock on him from other players that are either not in the organization anymore, or never at all, but just heard the stories about, like, they don't necessarily treat players the best, and the locker rooms are bad, or like those type of minor details. So, doesn't mean that Clark Hunt's going to fork over any and all money necessary But, when it's time for Mahomes to be back on top or near the top of the NFL most highest paid quarterbacks, that type of deal gets done. Chris Jones is up there in terms of how much money he gets as well. But, when it comes to, we assume just about any other player that's not one of the marquee, you're kind of getting pushed down the line in terms of your importance. And if your value is too high for what our books can handle, then at some point the contract discussions die out. We saw that happen with Tyreek Hill. We thought that separation would never happen. And then once it was out there, it pretty much was severed immediately. So, not to say Brett Veach and Andy Reid are vindictive like that, but I guess it depends how the Trey Smith and the Clark Hunt camp are in terms of their interactions and relationships. That's ultimately going to be the decision whether Trey Smith is one of those pillar players that we bring back at whatever number we have to, or if there's going to be a bottom dollar, much like the Tyreek Hill situation, that says, I'm sorry, I guess your value is too high for us, so trade you to the highest bidder, or at the very least next year, see you later, and I guess we'll take the third round comp pick for whoever you sign almost hundreds of millions of dollars to next.
Yeah. Hey, we tried our best with the Tyreek Hill situation, but hey, I ain't mad at him. It was more money calling out in Miami, so I'm not mad at him. Kind of sucked. But I mean, hey, no state taxes. I'm not mad at you.
And that's going to be a good case study for him, because I don't think at this point he would say he's got any regrets, because he's liked Miami and called that a home for him. But if you had just gone to him, 4 years later and said, hey, by the way, the team you left won multiple championships and almost repeated in your absence, and you thought that you were leaving and they were going to be on the decline or trying to figure out their new problems, but that team is just about as deadly and dominant as ever. And if you were on that team, you definitely would have been making Pro Bowls, because you would still arguably been the best wide receiver on the team, even when Rashee Rice, even with Xavier Worthy, would still be the number one option, and would be getting more and more of those targets with Travis Kelce seeming to be slowing down. So if you were Tyreek Hill and you kind of said, here, you can have this or this, one of your biggest achievements is scoring a touchdown against the Chiefs in the playoffs in a wild card game where you come back, where you chose to play where it's nice and warm, to be in the fourth coldest playoff game in NFL history, and you're the only lone highlight for your team. You got what you like. That's the Kyrie Irving effect right there. You got what you wanted. You wanted it to be your team, but what you're learning is you're not good enough, or you need a team around you to actually be successful, because you and you alone cannot carry a team to a championship. But if you could have continued to be on the Chiefs, imagine you would still get all the merchandise, you still get all the publicity, all the sponsorships, still been the cheetah. And then all the pressure would go off you less and less, because you'd see the weapons underneath you that were coming into the fold. So it was never always the Tyreek Hill show. At times now in Miami, he's wanted it to be. But even then, Jalen Waddle takes a lot of the spotlight away from him down there. So this is a team league. And so you have to find team-friendly guys. And I think at this point, the Chiefs hope that Trey Smith is a team-friendly guy. And from all we've heard from him, he seems to be a down-to-earth, normal human being. And he sees the success that's being had here. And you just hope that both parties can make it work. If they can't make it work in the next 2.5 weeks, then they'll reassess either midway through or hopefully at the end of another successful season, hopefully holding up a championship instead of the wrong color confetti.
There you go. Yeah, at this point, I think both parties are locked in and ready to go. I feel like once those numbers come together, we're locked in. We're ready to go.
Agreed. And I believe that is our time, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Gridiron Gambit. We hope you enjoyed watching or listening to us live or after the fact. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us and all of our contributors on the various social media platforms. You probably know us on any of those. If you're following us, you definitely see our posts or our videos or our reels or our articles or whatever it is, because we post everywhere, and when you're there, you're tapping in with us, and we appreciate your support. I don't have anything else to plug or promote, so I guess with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, and as always, go Chiefs.
Thanks for checking out this update straight from the heart of Chiefs Kingdom. We appreciate your passion, so please leave a like and follow us wherever you tune in from. See you next tailgate, your trusted source for all things Chiefs, Red Kingdom Media.